Undermount and Belfast sinks look fabulous in M-Stone, so we've developed a process and special tooling for you to achieve this on site. Achieving first-class results are easy, but patience is needed, and the recommended tools must be used following the installation guidance. For Undermount and Belfast sinks, the final sink cut will have the classic style, overhanging the sink by around 5mm. If two sinks are being undermounted side by side, at least 70mm of M-Stone must be left between the cuts. These sink cutouts are formed using a router and an M-Stone jig. Please remember vacuum extraction is compulsory and suitable PPE is needed as outlined in the installation guide. Ensure that your trestle table is set up to meet the installation guidelines and that the M-Stone workpiece and offcut are fully supported above the baseboard by 40mm planed timber blocks. Remember, if the waist isn't supported, you're risking damage to the surface if the offcut falls away. The reusable M-Stone jigs will ensure the best results. These are designed for use with a standard 30mm guide bush, and the special M-Stone cutters are supplied with a balancing packer to support and level the router through the cut. Encore jigs must not be used, as it will result in the cut being the wrong size. If you're making your own jig, please use the cutout as a similar packer. The 4 basic steps are: form the basic cutout using the coarse 10mm cutter, complete the cutout with the 13mm fine cutter ready for finish, bevel the top and bottom edges of the fresh face, and finish with the diamond hand pads. Remember, the cut is actually achieved by grinding, so the process is slower, so keep your effort consistent and slow and let the cutter do the work. Exerting excess pressure to force the pace will wear the cutter quickly, produce poor cuts, and slow the process down. To start, place and clamp the jig in place, inserting the balancer to balance the router. For the initial cuts with a 10mm cutter, the rotation speed should be 10,000 RPM on setting 1 for Festool routers. Lubricate the router base and jig to aid a smooth action. The cut is made in 4 passes at 6, 12, 18 and 35mm, and the use of vacuum extraction is, as always, mandatory. Between each stage, use a vacuum to remove the dust. Before the 4th and final cut, it's important to place a timber block under the point where you plunge your cutter into the M-Stone to avoid breakout on the underside of the work surface. Once the cut is finished, the jig is best left in place. Thoroughly clean the cut with a vacuum, and then you're ready for step 2. With the 13mm fine cutter attached, set the router to 11,000 RPM for Festool routers. Mandatory vacuum extraction should still be in place. 1 full depth pass should be made, removing about 2mm of material and readying the surface of the cut for finishing. Start from a corner, plunging the cutter into place before making contact with the face of the cut. The cutter depth should be set to protrude 5mm below the bottom face of the material. Gently push the cutter into the edge and forward at a steady pace. Never decelerate while in contact with the face, as this can cause marks that are difficult to remove. If you feel the need, always make another full pass, 2 or 3 if necessary, as this will reduce finishing time later. Never reverse the router to recut. Once you're happy with the quality of the cut, remove the jig, balancing pack, offcut and spacer, and thoroughly clean with a vacuum. Now the new face has been created, it needs to be finished with a beveled top and bottom to match the front edge of the worktop. To create this bevel, you simply need a laminate trimmer fitted with an adjustable guide assembly and the diamond bevel cutter from the installation kit. Make sure the surface is protected using either 50mm masking tape or a section of thick paper roll. It's strongly recommended that a test cut is carried out on waste material to set the router to match the factory finish. The bevel should be carried out in 1 smooth pass, and some form of vacuum extraction is mandatory. Remember, once the cutout is complete, the section is weakened and must be adequately supported to prevent cracking and breaking when handling the workpiece. This can be avoided through 2 simple measures. Firstly, by leaving the final corner cuts to be carried out when the work surface is in situ, and secondly, by using clamps and cover boards to support the vulnerable area. The final stage is carried out using diamond hand pads from the installation pack. They're Velcro-backed to attach to handheld palm sanders, a useful method for speeding up finishing on long straight sections, but corners will require hand sanding for best results. Always keep the pad and edge moist with a spray bottle through finishing. Finish with a 220 grit pad and then a 400, using long straight strokes followed by a circular action. A 120 grit pad has been supplied to remove bumps or irregularities first if needed. When sanding the front corners of a Belfast cut, extra care should be taken to blend the new face with the factory finished one. Darker colours of M-stone can dry a shade lighter after cutting. This is normal, and the finishing polish from the installation kit is supplied to restore the colour. Apply 2 coats with a clean cloth, allowing to dry first. Extend onto the factory finished edge if necessary to blend. Allow the resulting edge to cure for 24 hours before general use.